Hello, everyone. Welcome to osquery office hours. It is February. So let's see. People filled in an agenda, so that's pretty cool. I don't think we have any highlights. Maybe highlights are that we declared 4.6 stable, but maybe that was before the last meeting. I don't quite remember. So anyhow, 4.6 is stable, though we have an agenda item that maybe disagrees with that. So we'll get there. First section is questions, issues, PRs that anyone wants to discuss. I saw Ben added a bunch of stuff. First one is something about FIM.
Yeah, someone in the FIM channel was saying that osquery wasn't acting as intended, and we found out that it was SE Linux was preventing osquery from doing FIM capabilities. So I was wondering, was that intended to work that way? If it's not, do you guys know what the fix is?
I would bet that that is not intended, no. But I don't use SE Linux much, so I don't know if there's a way to adjust those permissions, or if there's a thing that we should change, or like how that intersects with AppArmor.
Yeah, I don't know enough about SE Linux either, so that's why I wanted to bring it up here if anyone else had any ideas.
I think if we don't have any ideas, it's probably worth filing an issue, and maybe. But I think the Linux people in the room are probably Stefano and Alessandro, probably the biggest Linux people these days.
So this is a good question, actually. I'm not totally sure. I think there could be a way to like whitelist osquery and its operations, I would say. Otherwise, the only other way is actually whitelisting those paths manually. But yeah,
this is based on iNotify, right? This.
Yeah, but well, yeah, FIM.
Okay.
Yeah, on Linux, yeah.
I'd say file an issue, and in all likelihood, no one will look at it, but maybe someone will pick it up.
Okay.
Or you could. Sorry.
I was going to say maybe the best thing we could do is document how to configure osquery on the allow list for SE Linux and see if that's a way to do it. Stefano, I don't know if you know how to do that, but maybe on the issue.
No, I mean, you can add as I will look into it. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm I think that there should be a way to do that.
I'd say the other thing is to encourage the user to file an issue, the end user directly. So if you didn't want to, Ben, encouraging Cameron to do it doesn't seem wrong. More people involved always seems good. But if they're not a GitHub user, then someone else could just do it.
Okay.
I'm just taking notes on that. I moved a bunch of items down into the agenda out of this first section, but I left a handful of things around requests for PR review here. So mostly all from Trellbits, though I stuck myself into a couple more of them. I don't know if people want to talk about these, if people kind of want to just try and look at them after the meeting.
We could do some review trading if you want.
I'm happy to take a look at your. So you all had two questions. So Trail of Bits had a couple of questions. One of them was about some response on data macros, which is PR 6897. I don't know. I could look at that, but that may want someone with more C knowledge than me.
Might be you could have a SQL question at some level, but
I'll try
I'm
and
pretty
take a look.
satisfied. I'm pretty satisfied with Stefano's answer, and if someone can go, yeah, that's what it was supposed to be, then we feel like, okay, well, we can merge this because it definitely fixes some lost event problems or some lost records that were passing through the wrong macro, I believe.
Oh, yeah, it looks like you're mostly shifting integers to big ints. I think this is fine.
Date times that are specifically 64-bit on Windows get passed through a few things and end up getting lost.
You have a thumb on that now.
Oh,
that seems fine.
All right. That's good.
And then you've got the unified log table. I'm excited to see that come in. Column for systems extension. And Alessandro, did you declare your Chrome extensions ready for review? It was in draft for a while.
Yeah, it is ready.
Cool. I can take a look at those, Zach, if you're up for looking at any of them too. I always feel a little out of my depth on the C++, so but I'll try and review those too.
Can anything that y'all need my eyes on, can you just hit the request review button, please?
Okay, I will. I tossed up a handful of PRs, which I probably love quick reviews on. They're all pretty tiny. I added a concat function, and in digging through our old issues, I found some suggested diffs, and I was like, yeah, those look reasonable. I'll PR them. So I wrote some PRs, but I didn't really test them. So anyhow, I'd appreciate a quick peek at those. They're all tiny.
I have another pull request that I switched back to draft. I found a bug in the eventing framework that prevents you from switching publishers on and off without restarting osquery. So a common pattern we have is that if the publisher or the subscriber is disabled, we return a status failure with a string containing something like disabled by configuration. Whenever you return this, the eventing framework will mark your publisher or subscriber as broken and forever in the is ending state, which means that if you try to, so we had a customer that using Fleet was trying to switch a publisher on and off. They were trying to disable audit and enable BPF, but that will never work due to this bug. So I have a comment here. I'll post it. I didn't open an issue yet. This is something we found yesterday. It is maybe worth mentioning in the documentation until we fix it.
I guess a couple things. I don't know that I'd call it a bug. It may have been intentional or just an oversight. If you think it's easy to fix, then I don't think there's any reason not to fix it. And similarly, if you think it's relatively easy to fix and you have a PR open, I don't know that it's even worth documenting because that's, we'd have to document it and then undocument it.
Yeah. So what I saw is that we have two bugs, one on top of the other, possibly. So in audit, the switch from enabled and disabled and vice versa was not correctly handled. I fixed that in the pull request I opened, and then I discovered the second issue. I anticipate that most publishers on the platforms will require a second look to make sure that they support the change in configuration. But that is not enough. We still have to fix the eventing framework. It isn't going to be as quick as I thought. There's a bit of a design issue in core where osquery cannot tell why something is disabled. It could be because it has failed the configuration. or because it has been disabled from the configuration when taking off a table, or because the flag has not been enabled. Without a way to distinguish these three cases, it is hard to fix, so it requires some work. And we will have to update this on all platforms and also update the test. So it's not as quick as I hoped initially.
I assume you'll end up introducing some state tracking for why it was failing or something.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, neat. Next question I saw come up was whether there was active development for the Apple security framework, Apple Endpoint Security Framework. And it looks like Trail of Bits said, yes, look for a new PR in the next few days.
Shrivel's working on this.
Yes.
I
But
happen
not for network events. Just wanted to make that.
Yeah, for process events, not for network events.
Is network events on the roadmap or just process events for now?
I think it's just process events for now, because with network events, we need an additional set of entitlements from Apple, and Apple treats it differently than endpoint security. And for network events, it also needs to be packaged as an app bundle rather than just a command line tool. That's an Apple requirement.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
The entitlement is not the same manually requested, uncertain deadline kind of thing that the endpoint security one is, right?
Yeah, you can auto request it in the form there in the drop down. You can select, give me network extension entitlement.
Yeah, it does have to build with that entitlement though. We don't do that yet. And the app bundle thing, I don't think there's any way around it. Maybe actually would know if there's a way around it. I don't know.
Mike, can you repeat your question?
If there's, I guess the question was if there's any known way to use network extensions APIs without being an app bundle.
Yeah, so I looked into some of the Apple I looked into the Apple forum, and yeah, mostly they get used as an Apple app extension. But I will look into if we can use some of the network extension framework APIs directly and get the needed information.
Okay, but in osquery terms, it's not on anyone's active development.
Yeah.
Speaking of Apple security framework stuff, I was logged into our Apple account last night to generate certs for Alessandro's code signing stuff. And I wasn't sure if I was supposed to make anything for CI, so I mostly didn't. Charbel, it looks like I didn't see a certificate from you in there. I don't know if I don't remember if you had one and it got deleted or what, but you can probably just make yourself one.
Okay, the last time I checked, I didn't have the developer role, or I couldn't create it, and you had to sort of create it for me, but I can log in again and check.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know where your needs are. You definitely have a developer role.
Okay.
But you probably can't edit profiles.
Yeah.
Would be my guess. But you could download them.
Yep.
It's all weird. Oh, that's right. Like I have to add you as a developer, then you have to make yourself a cert, then I have to add your cert to a profile. And I don't think there's a smoother way.
Yeah, I remember giving you my device UUID, but I haven't. I'll pick that up again.
You have to add both cert and device ID as a pair.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then the other thing probably related to this is that we need to make a profile to build and distribute osquery with. Is it just build time or is it distribution time too? Do I remember this right?
So I think it needs a distribution profile or distribution certificate. So distribution is basically releasing it to production, kind of.
Yeah.
So
I
like
think-
people without a profile can run it.
I think we have two different profiles for Sinter.
Yeah.
One of them could be used to sign the binaries,
Mhm.
but we had to use a different one to sign the PKG.
Yeah, and for like the distribution, only the account holder has that permission. So not even an admin role has that permission.
Sorry, there's a couple of things. There are multiple certificates. There are multiple code signing certificates. There's a code signing certificate for applications and a code signing certificate for packages. I have generated production certificates for both of those, and they are uploaded to both 1Password and GitHub. So there are now GitHub secrets with both of those in place. I don't remember if we also need to generate a profile or an entitlements file, or if those are just things we can kind of do ad hoc.
So entitlements file will be present in my PR, and it will need to be updated with our team ID and bundle identifier.
Okay. We don't need a profile for our production utilization, right?
If you're using the distribution profile, you don't need a.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Nice, thank you. I tried to push that ball a little forward. Okay, let's see. Now we're kind of down into our agenda. And now three items here. One of them is kind of just the state of the package and signing pipeline. And one of them is reports of 4.6 becoming unresponsive. So
apparently Teddy was recording that unresponsive report, right?
Yeah, that was something that someone came to me with, and I think we're still waiting on seeing the verbose and TLS dump logs from the agent. But I wonder if anyone else is running 4.6 in production on Linux.
So Collide, I pushed this to Collide's beta fleet a little while ago. Our beta fleet is not big, but I haven't seen any problems. I pushed it to the Collide stable channel, which means it's now all over. I pushed it to stable on Friday, I believe. I haven't heard any reports of Linux machines dropping. I do have one machine that is hosing itself, but it is not a 4.6 bug. So, but I feel like I should at least acknowledge that I have one machine that appears to be quite hosed. The thing I see in launcher, and I don't remember if this is an osquery or a launcher bug, is that if one log file can't send, things will like kind of get unhappy behind that one stuck log file. This is definitely a launcher bug, and I forget if it's an osquery one, but it is not a 4.6 bug.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we may be best off waiting until we can get some more logs around this issue, unless anyone's able to reproduce it on their own. I'm not sure what else we can do at the moment.
Do we know whether they were using special flags? Were they using events or not?
Take a look at the Slack report.
Yeah, I think
I didn't see the message.
It's linked in the office hours.
Thanks.
Thank you to whoever wrote it there. So it's the report from this person is on CentOS 7.9.
Yeah, maybe you can try to pick them again. I think we had a couple of refactors landing in 4.6.
So Teddy asked if we thought we could push 4.6 to stable in the package repositories. How do folks
I would have
feel
to
about that?
generate the packages for ARM, but I do not yet know how to push them on S3 without Teddy's help.
I can probably figure that out, but ARM is still a little bit of an unloved beta, so like we could just we can push the other things to the stable RPM and dev repositories.
Yeah, sure.
You know,
But we do have a couple of users using ARM. I didn't want to let them down.
not to say we shouldn't. Just it's a little bit of a separate issue. I think the question on whether 4.6 should be called stable is whether this report of this potential 4.6 bug is something that we should basically pause on a 4.6 release for. I don't know if anyone. I can try and spin up a CentOS 7 machine and see if I can get anywhere with this.
Yeah, I mean, I can try and do the same today.
I was going to throw open a Docker machine and hit it with live query.
Yeah, and who knows whether it'll reproduce in Docker or not, but it's certainly quite easy to do in Docker. And I think that I've actually published CentOS 7 Docker image. So that actually might be very easy for me to do if it does reproduce in Docker. I haven't tried yet. I was hoping that we would just get the verbose logs from the user, but I'll have a look.
So I'd say let's pause on any 4.6 releases, at least until you've taken a look. And like, if you can't reproduce it and we don't hear from the user, then I'm not sure there's much we can really do. So
that sounds good to me.
So the other item that someone stuck on here was an update about the packaging and assigning pipeline. Alessandro, you want to take it?
Yeah, sure. So I can maybe explain how it works right now. This is the first version. We will likely change it based on feedback. So we have the primary repository, osquery, containing just the base install targets to basically create the make the steer install possible. In this folder, we install all the files like UGIS, the batteries, and then also an additional folder named control that contains all the required files that we need to generate all the packages we want for this specific platform. So let's say if we are on Windows, we will have both the Chocolate files and also the Wix XML files to generate the MSI. On Linux, we will have the deb package control files and then the RPM ones.
Are those are the various packaging and control files coming out of the osquery packaging repos, or are they coming out of the main osquery repo?
They're coming from the main osquery repo.
Okay.
We also made a change in the CI so that this folder, let's call it package data. It is zipped and uploaded as an artifact to the CI or the tag. We then have made a different project inside the osquery packaging repository that contains just the CMake code and CPAC code to create the packages starting from this package data archive. The idea is that this osquery packaging repository contains code that is run both in the private environment of the signing process and in the public repository. So the reason it is split is for security. We then have a third repository that contains the signing workflow that will clone this osquery packaging code and also take the artifact as it is for the tagged release from the CI. So in this protected environment, we take artifacts from the main repository and then the osquery packaging code and nothing else. So ideally, we only really have to pay really close attention to this osquery packaging repository rather than having all the Python and testing and C++ code and CI code in the main repository to look for and merging things. So for the users, I guess nothing changes. The CI still creates all the packages as artifacts. We just have this additional folder that can also be useful for people if they want to just download this tarball and use it as a source to generate packages, because now they actually have all the files. So not just the binaries, but also the control files with the post-install scripts and so on.
Nice. What do we need to? What are the next steps?
So the next step is I need to update the pull request so that I explain this in the documentation in the wiki. And then we have to update this workflow, this signing repository, to contain the signing case. All the code that downloads the packages from the artifacts and repackages the files and uploads them is there. We are only missing the specific logic that signs the artifacts. For Windows, we already have the required sign tool.exe calls. We just have to switch the key we use. On Linux, I don't really have much any idea on how it works right now. So there's just a placeholder where we can insert a script. For macOS, we're kind of on the same boat. I know you have created the certificates. I really don't know how to use them yet. Last time I had to do this stuff on my machine, I had to log in through Xcode to download the certificates. I'm not sure how to do this on the CI without having this step in the middle.
So Xcode will just go through certificate. Basically, we'll go through a CSR process for you, which is totally boring. I did that. It's fine. It's done.
Nice.
So the things I stuck in both GitHub and 1Password are so everything in Apple is certificate based, right? And the normal workflow for this is that Xcode or Keychain generates a cert inside the keychain, generates a CSR, shoves the CSR into the Apple account signs it, and you download a cert. So Apple acts as a CA. So I took the Apple provided certificate and the private key that I generated, and I exported them into a P12, an encrypted P12, and I stuck the encrypted P12 in GitHub, in the GitHub secrets. So yeah, that's done. I didn't put the passwords anywhere, so you can't actually do anything with that, but it's there.
All right, so we only have to add the code sign calls, right?
I mean,
minus the password.
Minus the password, yeah. And I put both the application and the installer certificates in place. So they're different key cert pairs, and you can import both of them into a keychain. When I've played with this, it gets real weird. So Apple's code signing tool, and if any of you know better, please feel free to interrupt me. My experience is that Apple's code signing tool and also Windows' sign tool, coincidentally, really only want to work with the system certificate stores. You can't just be like, here's a P12 file on disk, please use it for me. They're like, CodeSign has all of this stuff where we'll like only pull things out of the certificate, out of the system keychains based on like team ID. So the steps that you need to do an Apple code signing in a CI context are to take a certificate that comes out of your secrets, import that certificate into a keychain, possibly creating the key, create a keychain, import the certificate to the keychain, then invoke code sign using the team ID. And I have found that to not always work right, because sometimes working with the system keychains requires a console login, and I'm not really sure. Like, there are definitely people who do this in CI, and I don't totally understand how they do it, because on my laptop and like my little test machines, I can't actually work on any of that unless I have a console login as well. But I mean, I know it works in some people's CI, so there's clearly some patterns here.
I actually have a fix for this in my laptop in a script, because I remember working on Sinter through SSH.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Well,
there's something to whitelist.
You can probably just iterate, right? Like, if you get enough of the hooks in, we can kind of just see if it works and try again and see if it works and try again.
Yeah. The temporary code I have on the signing process for Windows does use a certificate directly from a folder. There's a self-signed certificate committed in the repo that we have to remove with simple password just to see if it worked, and the banners appear to be signed. I'm not sure if this changes when we use a real certificate.
I'm extremely interested in that, because in my own work on Launcher, I haven't been able to get Sign Tool to work with anything that isn't in the system certificate store. So that's exciting to me. And I would say that instead of, even as a test cert, instead of committing it, you can stick it in the GitHub secrets. Yeah. And then it'll be easier to kind of just swap it out when it's working. My assumption for the GitHub secrets is that we're going to end up with one secret for an encrypted key, and then one secret for the key encrypting key. Like the P12, the P12 is there, and then there'll be another secret for whatever the password on the P12 is. The other caveat is that the GitHub secrets are strings; they're not files. So this is actually a P12 that I base64 encoded and pasted into a web form.
Yeah. Yeah, I committed the self-signed certificate just as a test. I didn't mean to keep it there. Makes sense to use secrets.
If people wanted to, we could leave the keys in the repo. It just feels better to, even encrypted, it feels better to shove them in the secrets.
Yeah, I think it's better.
Hey, Teddy.
Hey, Teddy.
Hey, Teddy. Hey, how's everyone doing?
We're all here.
We're all here. That's right.
We are not dead.
We were waiting for you.
Oh, no. I'm sorry I'm late.
Things I know you wanted to hear about. You asked if we should consider 4.6 stable. And the conclusion is we should at least see if we can reproduce this 4.6 hang. So Zach probably has some handy Docker containers, and he's going to at least spin it up. And either we'll be able to reproduce it or not. That's kind of the best we can do on that. Unless the user pokes their head up again. And we were just talking about the package and signing pipeline. So,
yeah, so help me understand where we are in terms of deploying 4.6. I want to be respectful of the sensitive information that you can share, but like, do we have a sense to deploy to 100 machines, 1,000 machines, and this is one error amongst a lot of non-errors?
So I pushed 4.6 to the Collide stable repository on Friday.
Okay.
Which means anyone who's using Launcher Auto Update, which is significantly larger than Collide's customer base, is running 4.6.
Okay.
And I have heard no reports of problems. But also most of the people who use it are generally going to be on Windows or Mac OS. So I have no knowledge of how many CentOS customers or even non-customers, because I know we have a lot of non-customers that hit those endpoints. I don't know if that's meaningful to you, but 4.6 went live in my world.
I mean, I remember issues of people stating like using the TLS endpoint or using the TLS logging functionality and having the endpoint go down. And when it comes up, what they experience is like logs just don't get sent. So it appears as if osquery is hung. I'll try to find exact issues, but this seems to pattern match against that. And that would mean that it's not really a 4.6 issue. I'm not confident that it's related to TLS endpoints going up and down, but
So
I've never really looked into it. Yeah.
A thing that I see, which is not a 4.6 issue, and I haven't even figured out if it's a launcher or an osquery bug, is that if a log file gets stuck, things will back up behind it. So, if, for example, and there are two cases I've seen this in. One case is UTF-8 errors, right? Launcher marshals everything to gRPC sometimes. So if you have a non-UTF-8 string, which we used to, but all that's fixed now, that would basically cause all of the launcher log sending to hang because the server would bounce a log and everything would get stuck behind it. And the thing I've started seeing too is that if you query something that generates a gigabyte of data and your network connection can't push a gigabyte of data, that log file is going to just sit there. But nothing that I'm saying is 4.6 related. So I haven't seen any 4.6 issues.
Yeah, the person who reported this claimed that 4.5 is good and that they're only seeing it in 4.6.
Mm-hmm.
But the issue that I just linked in the chat is one of several that sort of emphasizes behavior.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, let's say like a couple more days. Let's say on Thursday morning, Seth, you'll let me know if there have been any other errors here.
I'll certainly speak up if I hit any, and I assume if Zach's going to run a couple of quick tests, he'll say something as well.
Okay, so lack of any shouting about finding an error will push 4.6 to the repos.
Okay. I mean, I was getting ready to say, like, it's been out for weeks and let's push it. So I'm inclined to agree with that, but I think giving it a last check here makes sense.
Cool.
Yeah, that's where I am. I think it's easy for us to spin up a Docker instance and either it'll work or it won't work.
Yeah, so taking a step back, the delay to push packages out to the repos is clearly is only like a human one, like just not confident on the stability. So if we did push a package and then we later found there was a stability problem, we could move quickly to push a new package. We're intentionally holding it back to the lack of confidence.
Anyway, that was where we landed on that. we were just chatting about the package and signing pipeline, which sounds amazing. We need to work our way through sticking signing certs in and like getting all the little commands to actually do the right thing. I think there were questions about the Linux side of that. I don't know if this is the right forum or if you want to take it up later.
I currently left a placeholder in the workflow file, and we can add commands or script in there, and everything else is taken care of already. So if they're signed, they will automatically get uploaded to the tag.
We probably need to generate S3 credentials too, so we can push these around with S3. I guess we can just push them into the GitHub artifact store too. Next agenda item that folks wrote down were thrift issues on Windows.
Yeah, that was my question, and it looks like someone's answered.
I typed in something. What was the particular issue you're referring to?
Mike, I believe it was you were talking about the issue of the pipe disconnecting.
Yeah. Garrett took a look at it. I think it was kind of puzzling us. I don't know if we got a resolution. I think we had to put it down for now.
This is the one that was just spewing into the logs, right? Like related to pings or something?
That's not how I remember.
Okay.
I think the one we were looking at was thrift would... Oh, yeah. I know the one you're talking about. Thrift warning. It seemed harmless, but annoying, right? No, I mean the one where on Windows, the way that it handles thrift connections, I think within the thrift library is such that if anything else even so much as enumerates the pipe, it triggers what it thinks is a client connection and then fails and closes the pipe. And that's bad for multiple reasons, like not being able to use your own pipes table. If you have an extension up, it will fail.
Yeah,
but how it's happening seems to be within the library. I guess we haven't found the reason.
Is that we upgraded the thrift libraries? Is this still the case?
I believe so. Garrett was testing. Garrett, do you know if that was the 4.6?
I don't know off the top of my head. I believe it was, but I only got very, very superficial contact with the issue before other things reared up and got my attention again. So I don't have any depth on this.
I was working on Thrift before, and I know that even after the fix that I patched, that it still did this. So I assume it still does it a few weeks later. Yeah, it's you've seen a log that it thinks a client connected, but the handshake or whatever initiation fails because it wasn't really a connection. It was just a pipe enumeration. I guess it opened a handle or something. I'm not sure what it's detecting exactly. It's Windows only.
Okay. Well, thank you for the update. Yeah, I mean, part of the issue is that I think part of the issue is that on Windows we use this named pipe transport, and I think that there's just probably less support for that in the thrift libraries relative to like domain sockets.
Oh yeah, for sure. I appreciate that someone did add the ability to set an ACL on it, though. We made use of that when we upgraded.
Is there is there something we can wrap so that we can reopen it on failures?
Yeah, probably. We just don't have somebody actively working on it, I guess, is the answer.
And the other thing is, if we're sure this is upstream, I mean, we could file a bug that made it go nowhere, but at least we could point at it.
I'm not totally sure. I guess we'd have to reduce it to a test case. Somebody would have to have the time to do it. Just I guess we don't have it right now.
Okay. I think that's all of our agenda items.
Well, we didn't delay long enough for Nick to join. Did we have anything for him that he should be alerted to? I guess this Windows packaging stuff.
I know he's been paying a little bit of attention to Windows packaging. I haven't gotten us Windows code signing certs yet, so we may keep using Nick's key. I should buy us some.
Do we have some more knowledge on how Smart Screen works? I mean,
I have some.
we can take this on Slack if it's long. Just wondering if there's something we can start doing right now to prepare.
No. There isn't.
We are doomed.
To review, Windows Smart Screen there are 3 different kinds of certificates you can have in Windows LAMP. There may be more, but they're roughly 3. There are EV certs purchased now-ish, standard certs purchased now-ish, and standard certs purchased a long time ago. Standard certs purchased now-ish do not have reputation and will not get reputation until people download things using those certificates that have been code signed with those certificates. So you get an extra Smart Screen warning. It is not as scary as the unsigned malware warning, but it is kind of a let's see if I can remember it. Smart Screen can't verify that this developer is legitimate or something like that. I have never seen any discussion about how many downloads take to build reputation. So no one knows. It's not documented. And I also don't understand what happens when you renew a certificate, because half of the internet thinks that when you renew a certificate, it wipes out your reputation. And half of the internet thinks that as long as the common name stays the same, your reputation carries over. So reputation might be by common name or it might be by certificate hash, and no one knows. And EV certs are just something I really don't want to pick up. So,
is there any, let's say, strategy? So yeah, my question was more like, is there something we can do? For example, we could just generate the artifact packages and sign them with the new key right now, just for the testing when we load them to core.
So we can do that, but I mean, we'll do that for 5.0 packages, right? We'll have 5.0 packages that are in beta, and people will download and test them, and they'll go through that. So I don't know that we'd get much.
It's just for trying to get the reputation.
I mean, sure. As soon as we get a key, we can sign some packages and encourage people to download and use them. My guess is that, I guess I don't feel super worried because at some level we're an open source project, and that we're code signing puts us pretty far already. I deal with a lot of open source projects that don't even code sign. And I think a lot of the sites that might get really picky about this are probably running their own code sign or MDM-ish distribution things. So I don't know. I'm kind of like, what is there to do? We'll do it, and hopefully after 1,000 people, it'll be fine.
Yeah.
I haven't seen any, I don't know anything better. Yeah. This is why when people complain about the cost of buying Apple certificates, I'm like, but it just works. Have you tried this with Windows?
That is true.
So. Okay. Anyone have anything else they want to talk about? Could end it. Could talk about Linux signing, or my recollection is Teddy was saying there were some wrinkles around the Linux repository updates.
Yeah, I pasted the script that does the signing into a gist. I can go find that, or I can just paste it again somewhere.
Probably have that too.
The only wrinkle that I see is that the VM that does the signing sort of maintains some state. It has the yum repo and the apt repo there, and then it uses a tool, yum, or this tool called freight, to add a new package to that repo and then rebuild the repo metadata, and then an S3 command to sync that up to S3. So with this workflow, we'll have to figure out a way to download that state from S3, add the package and resync it, or use some other mechanism to maintain the state. It's not hard. It's just a heads up.
But like we could like use the GitHub Actions cache and then like sync it from S3 in case you missed any. Like we can do a thing. It's not secret. It's just download the entire repository or something stupid.
Exactly. Yeah.
Is it actually the whole repository, or is it just the metadata?
I don't know. I'll have to look. There's some confound with using the freight tool, and freight may have some consistency checks, like are all the packages there that are still in the packages file, and it may try to be helpful if one package has been removed, then the packages file now reflects that package being removed. So we'll have to find out.
We could create a second workflow in the signing repository that we can run after a while, maybe a couple of weeks, to just take the signed packages from the tag and update the repositories.
Yeah, we could do that. I think we should eventually get to this mode where we make a tag and packages show up in the repositories.
I mean, I think we can do this easily, but I thought it was a feature, not pushing things directly to yum and deb.
Push them to an unstable channel immediately.
Yeah, I guess it is kind of a feature right now. I'd like to move away from it. We can remind everyone that, hey, we provide these repos as a convenience. If you're adding like, open source repos to your production environment, then there's inherent risk involved.
Do you want to move away from it because of the work, or do you want to move away from it for theoretical or ideological reasons?
More ideological. I think when we make a tag, we should be confident. But
so right now in GitHub, we cut a tag and we often leave it as pre-release.
Yeah.
So I could imagine a workflow that is based on that. You cut a tag, it's pre-release. Well, it's pre-release, it goes to an unstable channel in the repositories. Once it becomes, when we check the box in GitHub and it goes stable, then it goes into the stable repositories. Like there's a clear demarcation.
Is that supported with the Actions API?
Should be.
Yeah.
Sounds brilliant.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not using, when capturing the tags, there is a flag that tells you whether it is a draft release or not. I'm wondering if it's hard to repeat this step without deleting the artifacts from the tag. And that is why I would still create a second workflow.
Okay.
If we still intend trying to switch functionality based on the draft.
We can talk about it. I feel like there's a pattern here that should be workable. Like I could imagine clicking go on a workflow and having that workflow basically just grab whatever the most recent tag, 5 tags are, and kind of evaluate, like, grab most recent 5 tags, look at them, and like do the right thing. Like I feel like I could write that code.
Yeah, I mean, as a secondary workflow, it's really easy. But if we have a single workflow that does both the code sign and the repo update, it gets messy if we want to try and switch the draft after it has already run.
Okay, I agree completely. One workflow does code sign and upload, and then one workflow kind of looks at the tags and generates repositories. That makes total sense to me.
Cool. Thanks, everyone. That was pretty good. I'm catching up with the notes, and I'm taking a look at the PRs that need to be reviewed.
Wonderful. Yeah, I dropped a bunch of tiny little PRs in, so if you want to look at them and render judgment, that's cool.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, thank
Happy
you all.
Tuesday, y'all.
Happy Tuesday.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Happy
Bye.
Groundhog Day. Bye.